Welcome to the channel. My name is Douglas, and in today's video, I'm going to be taking you through how to create a piano and synth pad layered sound on the Nord Grand 2. Now, whether you already have the Nord Grand 2 or you're looking to pick it up and wondering what it's capable of, hopefully this video is helpful for you and informative. I'm just going to walk step by step through the process, play the sounds as we go, and in the end, we'll have a beautiful piano and synth pad layered sound. Now, before we do anything, let's start with a blank slate. To do that, just hold Shift, tap on the Program and Net button, and then click on the number 2 program button that corresponds with the OK soft button on the screen. And then click OK, and that just brings us back to a white grand, simple grand piano with no effects. Now let's go ahead and make a couple of tweaks to our piano before we come over and select a synth pad to layer underneath this piano. Just a couple of concept things. We have 4 layers, 2 in the piano section, 2 in the sample synth section. We can turn on or cycle between the layers by tapping on the on-off buttons. You'll notice when I tapped on the first button within the sample synth, it turned that on and it didn't turn the layer off in the piano. That's because within each section, the piano section, sample synth section, we can alternate between the layers or turn both on by pressing both of the on buttons at the same time. Same with the sample synth. If we want to turn them off, we hold down on the button, hold down, and then if there aren't any on within a section, by tapping it, it turns it on, and then it's going to cycle between the 2 layers unless we press the buttons together. Now, one more conceptual thing is anytime there's a label below a button or a knob or an encoder, hold Shift to access that function. So for example, sample synth category, hold Shift, scroll the wheel, and now we get to the categories, seeing them in a list view rather than scrolling through them on the screen just by scrolling the wheel, and that without holding Shift doesn't give us a list view. So just an example there. Let's turn the sample synth layer off and come back to our piano layer A. Again, this is that white grand. I'm going to leave the KB touch on normal. Let's turn on a level 1 dynamic compression, and then let's turn on a level 1 of unison. Gives it a little bit more of a real, slightly out of tune feel. Love it. Let's come over to the sample synth, tap on layer A and turn that on. Now, right away we can see it's on flute multi, so if we play this together, these 2 are layered together, both on full volume, as you can see by the LED indicator next to the layer fader. Now, a flute doesn't make a great background for a synth pad. So let's go in and change our category by scrolling the wheel or by holding Shift and scrolling to get to our list. Once we're on the list, we can let go of Shift, scroll through that list. Lots of categories here. We're going to come over to the synth pad category, tap on the Exit Shift button here. Synth pad 1 is the first one in that category. Similarly, we can scroll through the different samples within this category or hold Shift and scroll to see a list of the synth pads, 13 of them within the synth pad category. Let's just scroll through a few of these. Let's go with that one, Pacific Pad. We can just click Exit or tap Exit, and that selects it. You can see here, we're seeing this view where we've got the white grand, which is over here in our piano section, and the Pacific Pad in our sample synth. Now, if we turned all our layers on, notice how I can see each sample that's selected on all of my 4 layers. I'm going to turn these 2 layers off by holding down on the on-off button, and we're left with piano and synth. Now, we could adjust the volume of either of our layers by just bringing the volume fader up and down. So for example, we want less piano, and similarly, less synth pad. Now what's really cool is as we're playing and we want to fade in the pad, you can do that just by simply reaching up and moving the fader. So let's say we're playing piano. Pretty cool. Let's bring the volume of our synth pad down. Let's go ahead and throw some reverb onto our synth pad and piano. So we're going to turn the global reverb on by tapping the on button. And then let's go ahead and choose Cathedral as our reverb type. We can turn the dry wet knob to give us more or less of that reverb on our particular sound. Now, because we don't have layer send turned on, this dry wet, or the amount knob of our reverb, is going to affect all 4 of our layers in the same way. What we want to do is separate this by holding Shift and tapping on the on button for the reverb, which is going to turn layer send on. Now, what this is going to do is, while the settings here on our global reverb are going to be the same on all our layers, the amount, or the dry wet knob here, is independent for whichever layer is active. So you can see over here in my layers, my sample synth layer is active because it's red. If I move over to the piano, now my piano is the active layer. And you can also see in the FX focus section here, it shows the effects section is going to follow whichever layer I have active over here in my sections. So synth layer A is active. I can see the red right there. I can move to the piano and you'll notice it changes to the piano. Now, if you have more than one layer on in a section, so let's turn our second piano layer on. Now we get a red blinking light to show us that within the section, the red blinking layer is our active layer. I'm going to go ahead and turn layer B off for a second here. And on layer A, let's go ahead and change our reverb amount to maybe 3.5. I'm going to pull that back to about 2.5. Now on our sample synth, let's activate layer A. You can see it's red now and our effects have changed over. Here, let's go ahead and bring this up. We're going to drown that synth. Maybe not quite so much, maybe 5. Make a couple of additional adjustments here. Let's turn on the bright timbre of our reverb, and what this is going to do is accentuate just the higher and mid tones of the reverb. It helps us not to be as muddy in the mix by highlighting the bright frequencies of the reverb. Now over here in our sample synth section, let's spend a little bit of time tweaking this sound. So I'm going to turn the layer A off within the piano section and turn the volume all the way up for this synth. Let's pull that reverb back a little bit here. And then we're going to play with the attack, decay, and release of this synth sound. So the attack is how quick the sound comes in when we play it. The longer the attack time, the slower it comes in. Let's land somewhere around like 1.5, 1.6. Now notice when I let go, that's the release. It goes away pretty quickly. Now this knob does 2 different things. In the center here, it kind of falls into groove here. This, no matter how long we hold these keys, the sound isn't going to sustain. If we move to the left, this is the decay, and if I bring this back to the left, when I hold down the notes, this is how long that sound sustains before it drops off, even if I still hold the notes. So let me bring it all the way back to 3 milliseconds. Notice it stayed for 3 milliseconds and then dropped off, even though I'm holding the key. I'm holding the key, but it dropped off. It decayed really quickly. We could bring that up so it lasts for much longer, up to about 45 seconds, and then we hit sustain, which is going to sustain infinitely. And then as we go to the right, this is sustain plus the release time. So the release time is after I let go of the key. How long does that sound continue? I like to go somewhere around like 2 to 2.5. That to me is a much slower, better synth pad sound to go behind a piano. Let's layer the piano in, bring the synth pad back a little. That's pretty good. Let's turn the piano off again and let's mess with a couple of additional things here. Looking at the dynamics section, if we play this, listen to how the tone of the sound changes a little bit. With this off, it has a little bit of a sharper sound to it. We're gonna put this all the way on 3, and then we can take it a step further by changing it to bright or soft. So let me play this, and then put it on bright. See, it's got more of a bite to it. Me. And then soft. This is giving us a hint of that frequency knob that you would have on maybe the Nord Stage 4, the filter frequency. This gives us a couple of different presets for our synth pad. Not as much control, but it allows us to choose between soft, normal, and bright. And in this case, we're gonna go with soft. I'm gonna bring my attack, make that just slightly longer. That's getting to be a really nice sample there. Let's bring the reverb up to about 3.5. So I'm giving you a little insight into how I build my programs. One of the ways is just sit with one layer and just spend the time to tweak the effects and the various controls that we have to tweak our, the Pacific pad sample and really turn that into something that sits better behind a piano. So let's bring this back, layer in the piano again. Now we could go ahead and store this by tapping on the store button. And then we're going to use Shift and Next Page to jump banks all the way over to J11. And then we could name this by holding Shift and tapping on that store button to store it as. So maybe we scroll over here and we say we want to store this as White Grand Pad. And you can see as I'm holding down the number 2 button, which corresponds to the ABC, it gives me the letters to choose from, and then I'm using the program dial to scroll and pick the letter. Once we've done that, we can tap on the store button again, and we're storing it to Bank J, Page 1, Program 1, and we're naming it White Grand Pad. So we just tap store one more time, and now you can see we're in Bank J, Page 1, Program 1. And it saved everything exactly the way we built it. If we turn the Nord Grand 2 off and back on again, or we move away to another sound, come back to it, Choose a different one. Come back to J1. Let's say we want to take the unison off. We can make that adjustment and just double tap on store, and that's going to store it, save it over what was there in that current slot. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how to start to build layered sounds on the Nord Grand 2. Again, if you're looking to buy this and you're wondering, hey, is this what I need in terms of a digital piano that does a whole heck of a lot more than most of the digital pianos out there? Hopefully this was helpful. Or if you already have it, you're wondering, how do I start to use some of the features in here? There's a lot in here. It's pretty amazing what you can build in this, and hopefully that gives you a little bit of direction there. If you've got any questions around what I went over in this video, or you have some other videos you'd like made of the Nord Grand 2, throw those down in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching. Stay inspired and keep making that music.